When I was younger, I thought I had my life figured out. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, where everyone knew one another. My name is Daniel Miller, and I grew up in a household that wasn't broken, but it wasn't exactly the picture-perfect family either. My father worked long hours as a truck driver, sometimes gone for weeks, and my mother, Carol Miller, did her best to hold the house together while raising me. My mother was a quiet woman, strong, but the kind of person who never really asked for help. She had a few friends, though most were women from church or neighbors. But then one summer when I was 16, she reconnected with someone who would end up changing the entire direction of my life, her old high school friend, Rebecca Hayes. Rebecca was different from the women my mother usually surrounded herself with. She was confident, outspoken, and carried herself with the kind of energy that made people notice her when she walked into a room. My mother had always been humble and low-key, so I was surprised she had a friend like Rebecca. But as it turned out, Rebecca had been my mom's best friend in her youth, though life had pulled them in separate directions. Rebecca had moved to Chicago after college, built a career in real estate, and had lived a fast-paced life compared to our small-town quietness. When she came back to Ohio to take care of her aging parents, she reached out to my mom, and just like that, the two women were spending afternoons together, catching up on decades of memories. At first, I thought Rebecca was just another adult in my life, someone who'd come over for coffee and talk about things that didn't interest me. But I was wrong. She was about to play a role I never expected. One hot afternoon in July, my mother asked me to help Rebecca carry some boxes from her car. She had just moved into a house down the street, a charming old place that needed a lot of fixing. I remember opening the trunk and seeing the sheer number of boxes. It wasn't just household items. Rebecca had collected books, photographs, and memorabilia from her travels all over the world. As we carried them inside, I caught myself looking at the framed pictures she had leaned against the wall. There were images of mountains in Peru, bustling streets in Tokyo, beaches in Greece. I had never been farther than Indiana, and suddenly, I was staring at places I couldn't even imagine being real. "You like to travel?" Rebecca asked, noticing the way I lingered on the photos. "I've never been anywhere," I admitted, a little embarrassed. Rebecca smiled. "Well, that can always change. The world is bigger than you think." That was the first time I felt something shift inside me. She didn't say it like a dream or a fantasy. She said it like a fact. Like the world was actually accessible if I just dared to step into it. Over the weeks that followed, Rebecca became more involved in our lives. She often joined us for dinner, and sometimes my mother would ask her for advice about things she struggled with, like managing finances or dealing with repairs. But Rebecca didn't just talk to my mom, she talked to me. She asked me about school, about what I wanted to do in the future. I always gave vague answers like, "I don't know yet," or "maybe college," but she never let me get away with that. "You're smart, Daniel. You can't just float through life waiting for something to happen," she told me once. "You've got to decide what you want and then fight for it." Her words stuck with me more than anything my teachers had ever said. Maybe because she said them with conviction, like she believed in me more than I believed in myself. One Saturday, she invited me to help her clean up her new backyard. I thought it would just be yard work, but it turned into one of the most important conversations of my life. We pulled weeds, trimmed branches, and as we worked, she told me stories about her younger years. She admitted she hadn't always been brave, that she once doubted herself, too. But one day she decided she didn't want to live a life of regret, so she started saying yes to opportunities, even if they scared her. By the end of that day, I realized something. I wanted more out of life than the quiet path I had assumed I'd follow. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world beyond Ohio. Rebecca encouraged me to apply for programs I didn't even know existed, scholarships, summer camps, even exchange programs. At first, my mother was hesitant. She worried it was too much, too expensive, too far. But Rebecca reassured her, helping us find opportunities that were affordable and practical. The first real leap came when Rebecca convinced my mom to let me join a youth leadership camp in Colorado. It was the first time I had ever been on a plane, the first time I had seen mountains, the first time I had been surrounded by kids from all over the country. That summer, I discovered confidence I never knew I had. When I came back, Rebecca was the first one to ask me every detail. She wanted to hear about the people I met, the hikes we went on, the lessons I learned. She didn't just ask, she listened. And that made me want to keep pushing forward. Through high school, she kept encouraging me. She helped me study for the SAT, edited my college essays, and even taught me basic budgeting skills. My father was proud of me, but he was often too tired from work to guide me in those ways. Rebecca filled that gap, not as a parent, but as a mentor. When I finally got accepted into a university in Chicago, ironically the same city Rebecca had once built her life in, I felt like it was a victory not just for me, but for her, too. On the day I left for college, my mother hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. Rebecca, however, looked at me with that same confident smile she always had. "This is just the beginning, Daniel. Remember, the world is bigger than you think. Don't stop until you've seen it." Years later, when I graduated with a degree in international relations and began working for a nonprofit that sent me overseas, I realized just how much Rebecca's influence had shaped me. Every step of the way, I could hear her words in the back of my mind, reminding me to take chances, to believe in myself, and to never settle for less than the life I wanted. Rebecca wasn't family by blood, but she became family by choice. She taught me lessons my own parents, as loving as they were, didn't know how to teach. She gave me courage when I had none, and because of her, I built a life filled with adventure, meaning, and growth. Now, whenever I come back home and visit that small town in Ohio, I always make sure to stop by Rebecca's house. She still lives there, her backyard now beautiful and full of life. We sit on her porch, sipping iced tea, and laugh about how much time has passed. I often tell her, "You changed my life." And she always replies, "No, Daniel, you changed your life. I just reminded you that you could." But deep down, I know the truth. Without her, I might never have believed in myself enough to even try. And that's why, to this day, I will always say, my mother's friend changed my life.